Hello once again, this is Michael or GallifreyanAvenger, and today, in light of recent news, I'm going to share my opinions on the state of the Star Wars franchise. Now, obviously after the release of The Last Jedi, the floodgates opened to fairly polarising reviews, including my own. I think it's fair to say that Rian Johnson's input divided the majority of the fanbase. One thing that has to be noted is the strong feminist overtones, which I will address later on in the video. Also, finally, we've received some form of marketing of the Han Solo movie coming out this May. The first trailer was released last Monday, following a TV spot which was dropped during the Super Bowl in America the day before. This film had its fair share of drama behind the scenes between Phil Lord and Christopher Millar, the original directors, leaving the project due to creative differences with Lucasfilms. In other words, Kathleen Kennedy sacked them. Ron Howard took over and finished filming. Things were in absolute limbo prior to last Monday's trailer, which didn't go unnoticed. Nonetheless, the trailer came out, and I'll be honest, there was no hype whatsoever for me. And this film has a great cast: Emilia Clarke, Woody Harrelson, Donald Glover, but they have to step back to let the young Han Solo shine, Alden Ehrenreich, who needed an acting coach on set with them. I'm just going to leave it at that. Disney, since taking control of Lucasfilms, have been milking the cash cow that is Star Wars to the nth degree. And it doesn't end there. With Episode 9 coming out next year, a Boba Fett origin movie reportedly coming out the year after, Rian Johnson producing his own trilogy, and now David Benioff and DB Weiss signing on to do their own Star Wars film series. If the franchise isn't oversaturated now, God only knows what it will be in 10 years' time. So yeah, obviously the most recent breaking news was that David Benioff and DB Weiss, the creators of the TV series Game of Thrones, have signed on to make their own Star Wars films, which caught my attention, but maybe not for the right reasons. Now, I've only seen the first 2 seasons of Game of Thrones, so I must confess that I'm not a huge fan, but I do think that it's a decently produced show. That being said, the cynical voice in the back of my head is saying, place your bets on how long they'll last before Kathleen Kennedy sacks them for creative differences. And speaking of Kathleen Kennedy, good God, give me strength. Clearly she has issues with her directors, seeing as Lord and Millar were kicked off the Solo film as I mentioned earlier, and Colin Trevorrow, who was meant to direct Episode 9, also got sacked to make way for J.J. Abrams, again. Kennedy was shown in an interview saying that she wanted to change up the gender roles for the main protagonist because she felt young girls couldn't relate to Luke Skywalker or Han Solo. Are you kidding me? What we ended up with was outright feminist propaganda in the latest 3 Star Wars films. I'll start by saying that Rey in The Force Awakens and Jyn Erso in Rogue One are downright carbon copies of one another. Don't believe me? Have a look at these eerily similar scenes. Hey! It wasn't so bad in those 2 films, but the biggest offence was in The Last Jedi, particularly with Leia and Admiral Holdo belittling Poe for the majority of the film, Holdo demonstrating her ineptitude, resulting in a mutiny led by Poe, only to be chastised by Leia. Their response after Poe learns his lesson after nearly destroying their army? Oh Poe, you arrogant, testosterone-filled hotshot. Rey is reluctantly trained by a completely defeated Luke Skywalker. Mark Hamill has gone on record saying to Rian Johnson, I fundamentally disagree with everything you've written about my character. The optimistic beacon of hope from the original series reduced to a downtrodden shell of his former self. Of course the baton, so to speak, is passed on to Rey, but now Luke, who was heavily conflicted fighting his father in Return of the Jedi, nearly murders his nephew in cold blood at a moment's notice? I'm sorry, what? The male characters in the films are written as dour, defeated individuals deliberately to contrast the strong female protagonists. And I've no problem with strong female characters, but the agenda here is beyond forced. This isn't just radical feminism, this is downright misandry. The white male characters represent the dark side, according to Kennedy. And speaking of white males, oh boy, have I got a treat for you. So in the wake of the news of Benioff and Weiss being signed on to do their Star Wars films, this article caught my attention. Star Wars, 96% of its film universe writers and directors are white men. What this is, essentially, is a triggered SJW Snowflake giving out about the lack of female or multi-ethnic directors and writers in Star Wars. Can you not see the irony of calling out alleged discrimination in this article by inciting discrimination yourself? I love how the last remaining form of accepted racism is against Caucasian males. When I go to see a film, I do not preemptively judge it based on the sex and ethnicity of the director. If you want to look at diversity, just look at the Star Wars characters. There was never a white supremacist agenda implied. This all started as George Lucas's vision, don't forget. Of course, there are several talented female and multi-ethnic people in the entertainment industry today. And yes, there is a lot of talent that is overlooked. But this statistic is just asking for trouble. It's this logic nowadays that diversity and affirmative action supersede qualifications and merit. No one is out to segregate these groups. If anything, your condemnation of white males screams segregation. All I'm saying is that there are more important issues you could be writing ranty articles about. Oh wait. Anyway, I'll conclude by saying it's only a matter of time until everyone has succumbed to Star Wars fatigue and Disney will just try to find another way to take your money. On that note, until next time, I've been Michael or GallifreyanAvenger. Thank you for watching and see you soon.